You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Okay. I'm interviewing people today about something called epistemology, which is the study of knowledge. And it's something that, like, it's a topic that you pick. It deals with what people believe in, how they arrived at those beliefs. And so it can be anything you believe in. It's an open field, just some deeply held belief, something that is kind of foundational to you, that really informs kind of who you are, how you live, something that you're really certain of, that's really foundational for you. And the questions will be revolved around, how did you get there? How did you determine that this thing is true? Yeah, I mean, so in short, just some deeply held belief, basically. That's all it is. And the questions will be, how did you get there?
I'm gonna say gender.
Okay. What do you mean when you say that?
I kind of mean like that everybody should be treated the same way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's kind of different than I was raised, but when I got older, I did start to question that, and like, how come I can't do things other people can?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I try to deal more with stuff that, like, can be objectively verified or disproven. So that would be a good conversation, but that's more of a value.
Oh.
And values are they're really subjective. they kind of, the things that you would use to kind of verify them are really kind of based on the person. I try to focus more on something that you believe in that's like an objective claim about reality.
Okay, so you mean religion?
That's an example. Yeah, that's one example. It doesn't have to be that, but sometimes it's religion. For some people, it's maybe a political claim, or some people it's another supernatural claim. It's karma, or it's aliens, or for some people it's God.
I can't think of anything else about it.
Okay. Can I get your name?
Sabreen?
How do you spell that?
That's Sabreen.
Sabreen.
Yeah.
Okay, my name's Raul. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay, so Sabreen, so what were you saying? You said religion, or?
Yeah.
Okay, like, what do you mean? Like, do you want to define?
In one God.
Okay.
And I believe he sent down prophets like Muhammad, Jesus, Moses.
Okay. Do you want to talk about God exists? Maybe would that be something that you believe in? Okay. So God exists. So when you say God, can you define what you mean by that?
I mean like a creator, not necessarily having a human form. Like some Christians believe that there's a God, but we don't believe that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so some creator.
Yeah, like all-knowing and all-seeing.
Okay. And like on a scale of like 0 to 100, if you had to sort of put a number on how certain you are of this belief, are you like 100% certain, or are you somewhere in between?
95%.
Okay, so 95% certain. Okay, so what gets you to such a high degree of certainty? What gets you to your 95%?
I mean, well, that's what I was taught, and I don't see any reason that I shouldn't believe it.
Okay. So this is what you were taught, and you don't really see any reason not to believe it. Okay. What would be some reasons to not believe it? Like, what would be some things that would cause you to lower that level of certainty down from your 95%?
You're asking me like a question about something I don't do, so kind of like, what do you think?
I mean, it's not my belief. I'm more interested in what you believe. I'm glad, like, those kind of questions, if you want to ask me maybe after the interview, I just don't want to like lose focus, but you could totally ask me any and all questions like afterward. I just don't like to get, kind of, I don't like to stray away from the, what your belief is, because if I start telling you what I believe in, it's just gonna, I'm just more interested in like what you believe in and how you got there and how we can verify that this thing is true. And I think part of that is like, what would you mentioned you don't see any reasons to not believe it. So what might cause you to doubt? What might cause you to be less certain that God exists?
I mean, I don't know how you would prove that he doesn't exist.
Okay.
I mean, I guess in theory, but a lot of it's just going to be philosophical arguments.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So maybe, so as far as what makes up your 95%, you said this is what you were taught? Okay. Do you think that you being taught this necessarily means that it's true?
Maybe. I mean, I believe it, but like a lot of people who were taught the same thing don't.
You mean who are taught, like who were raised the same way you were, but don't believe it? Okay. So is it possible to be taught something and yet that thing not be true?
Yeah.
Okay. So where do we go from here with like a belief? Like if we have a belief that we were taught and we realize that like being taught something is not necessarily an indicator of truthfulness, like can being taught something growing up, can that get us to 95%? Or should we have maybe a lesser degree of certainty? Or is 95% a good place, do you think?
I mean, I think it depends on the person. If it's something like a belief in God, which is not exactly something that you have to do anything about, I mean, I am religious, but a lot of people just believe and don't do anything. So it's theoretical.
Okay. So would you say yes or no to that question though? Like, is upbringing a good 95%? Like, if we had to imagine this as like a rocket ship that needed a certain amount of fuel to get out of Earth's orbit, like, does upbringing, is that enough fuel to get us to 95%?
Yeah, I think socialization has a pretty big part of it.
Okay. Does upbringing have, like, is it able to discern between true and not true?
Not necessarily.
Okay. So upbringing isn't really able to discern between what's true and what's not true.
Sure.
Is that what you're saying? I'm trying to, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to understand you. So you're saying like being brought up to believe something isn't a like upbringing that doesn't really have an ability to discern between what's true and what's not true. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you can decide for yourself what's true also.
Okay. So with this belief, if upbringing is not a good way to discern if it's true, namely God exists, what is a good way to determine if it's true?
I don't know. I don't really think about that. I mean, it's mostly an inner thing. Like you either believe or you don't.
Okay.
Maybe it's not completely rational, but it is what I and other people like have faith in.
Okay, faith. So faith. So we're okay. Can you kind of define what you mean by faith when you use the word?
It's like an inner belief in something or someone that's not like material necessarily. And if we're talking about God, it's believing in like a higher power that created us and everything.
Okay. So faith is an inner belief in something that's not material. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I guess like people who don't believe in God could believe in other things, like their cause, like feminists believe in gender equality. I mean, I kind of believe in that too, but that's more of a political thing than a faith, really. Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess not everybody has
faith. So does faith have the ability to discern between truth and error? Like, if we're trying to determine whether or not this belief is true, should we apply faith as a way of doing that?
I mean, what do we mean by we? Like, I don't think anybody else has to agree with my version of faith.
Okay. Well, when I say we, I just mean
I know.
people who are like if it's sort of a
General.
general we, like if we as thinking people, if we're like trying to discern whether or not God exists is a true statement or not, is faith a good method of doing that?
I mean, it's not a scientific method, but we're not talking about science, we're talking about like personal beliefs.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't like force anybody else to believe.
Okay, so you said it's not a scientific method. Would science maybe be a better way of proving that this particular belief is, whether or not it's true? Okay. If you had, let's say theoretically or hypothetically, you had scientific evidence for this belief. So you believe God exists and you have scientific evidence. Do you think that would give you a greater degree of certainty than currently, like what you have as far as faith?
I think I have a pretty high degree of certainty, like 95%. And there's always going to be uncertainty because you don't know everything. But I feel that it's true, so that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay. If someone really believes something is true because they were brought up with it, and they're wrong, let's say hypothetically they're wrong, they were brought up to believe something and it's actually false, but they don't know that, but they're still like, they have this high degree of certainty because they were raised. What's a good way for them to find out that their certainty is not well founded?
I guess by like learning it. I mean, it also depends on what kind of people you hang out with. Like if you start to be friends with more like secular people and like people from other religions, you might start to believe in their thing too, which is fine.
Okay. Let's say hypothetically you were wrong about your belief. Is that something that you would want to know?
I mean, yeah.
Okay. So if you were wrong, you would want to know that? Okay. So what would be a good way for you to find out? If you, hypothetically, you were wrong, how would you come to that knowledge?
I mean, since I came to the knowledge that I have my belief in the first place, then it would have to be the same thing, like me personally believing.
Okay. So and you said for you that was upbringing.
Right.
But it's kind of hard to like go back in time and be brought up a different.
Yeah. Complicated.
Is there a way like since you can't go back in time and raise yourself believing something different, like is there a way, hypothetically, if you were wrong, to find that out?
Maybe.
Okay. If somebody were raised in a different belief system, maybe a different religion, different God, and they appealed to upbringing as the reason why they believe in what they believe in, and you think they're wrong, and of course anybody can believe what they want, but you think they're wrong, you think that their belief is not well founded, their God doesn't exist, what would you tell them to help them see that? Like if they were open, if they were like, if I'm wrong, I want to know. Like, what would you say to them to help them realize that actually their belief is false?
Maybe try to like relate to them in some positive way, but they might not always be receptive to that, and I don't really want to like pressure people.
Okay. What would bring you above 95%? What would knock out some of that, whatever doubt you may have, that 5%? Like, what would bring you above 95%?
I mean, if there was like absolute proof that there was a God, maybe, but there's never 100% certainty.
Mm-hmm.
You have to leave that like interval.
Mm-hmm. Is faith reliable as a way of determining truth? Is it something that's reliable? Can we count on it to lead us to accurate conclusions?
It might be reliable for yourself because everything you've experienced might align with your faith, but somebody else may not. So I would say I think it's reliable, but not valid, like not, you can't apply it to everything. Yeah.
Okay. If you were in the court of law, let's say somebody accused you of something, right, and you were innocent, and you knew you were innocent, would you prefer the jury use faith as a way of determining your innocence, or some other more objective standard of?
So I would like to actually look at the evidence.
Okay.
It's something that affects my life, and it's not just like a theoretical.
Okay. What if somebody in the jury said, faith brings me to 95% certainty that you're guilty? Do you think that would be a good sort of verdict on their part?
It depends on what the crime was.
You're innocent. In this scenario, you're innocent, but they say, I'm 95% certain that you're guilty because I have faith that you are. Do you think that would be a good verdict?
No, it doesn't hold up in court.
And would you accept that verdict from the judge?
I mean, one person on the jury might not convince all the other people, so.
Okay. Let's say all 12 men and women of the jury are 95% certain, and they appeal to faith as the reason why they're 95% certain. Is that a verdict that you would feel comfortable with?
No.
Okay. So let's say you're on the jury. You're the 12th jury member. All 11 people are saying, because of faith, I'm 95% certain that this other person is guilty. And they appeal to faith. What would you say to help them realize that maybe the reason they're giving is not the best reason to think this person is guilty?
I would try to like present the evidence that I think that, I mean, whoever is not guilty, it might not have an effect on them though, because it could be like talking to a brick wall if they're very solid in their belief.
So evidence trumps faith in this scenario?
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to your currently held belief that God exists, would you say that evidence trumps faith? That if you were to encounter evidence to the contrary, that it might dissuade you?
If I did encounter evidence, but so far it's just theoretical, like philosophical stuff, so I can't say, I can't really say that he doesn't exist. That's not evidence.
If evidence is sufficient to disprove this belief, should we require evidence to prove it?
I guess so. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
There's some bug.
Oh, got it. Thanks. So evidence can disprove it, but also because we would require evidence to disprove it, we should require evidence to prove it?
Yes.
Okay. And do you currently have that? Do you currently have that evidence?
I mean, I can't convince you if you're not already like on the same page.
Okay. All right, Sabreen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is just, I enjoy having conversations about what people believe in, and then more importantly, like, how did you get there? You know what I mean? Is the method we're using, the vehicle we're using to drive to Truth Street, is it a good vehicle? Or is it gonna break down along the way and,